Hi everyone, my name is Betsy Cutts and this is some Minnesota folklore that I grew up with. It's one of the Paul Bunyan stories, and the interesting thing about Paul Bunyan stories is that they started off as logging tales from the lumber yards, and they were tall tales because everyone knew someone that was taller or something like that. And then someone decided to publish the tales as in like a newspaper, and they sort of just made up stories rather than publishing the real ones. But then eventually they became the folklore instead of the original tales that took place in the lumberyards. So that's sort of interesting. But this is the tale of Paul Bunyan and Babe the Big Blue Ox. So it was a very cold winter in Minnesota. It was the coldest that they had ever seen. The geese were frozen to the lake, and the water was frozen so solid that you couldn't even drill in to go ice fishing. People would try to talk to each other, and as they would talk, their words would turn into snowflakes and fall down. So they never reached the person they were meant to talk to, and they would have to wait until they were inside. And one day, Paul Bunyan was tromping through the snow that was coming all the way up to his knees. The snowdrifts were so high. And he heard a snorty kind of sound that almost sounded like a pig, maybe. And so he's looking around, and he doesn't know where it's coming from until he sees this little baby ox that is so cold that he has turned blue from the cold. And he's angry. And he's snorting around and trying to see where he's going in the snowdrifts, and he can't. So Paul Bunyan picks up Babe like a baby and carries him home up against him to try to keep him warm. And when they get inside, Babe starts snorting around and moving his hoofs around and trying to get warm by the fire. And it's just having a grand old time. And he stays blue. Like, when he warms up, he doesn't turn brown or white or anything. He stays blue because he was so cold when he was so little. And so Paul Bunyan names him Babe, the blue ox. And Paul Bunyan and Babe become best friends, and Babe goes everywhere that Paul Bunyan goes, and they go out logging together, and Babe is very little, but he starts hauling wood. And he's getting stronger and bigger every day. And at first he's very easy to feed and he's little. But pretty typical of Paul Bunyan, anything around him will grow really, really big. So Babe starts to grow. And he gets bigger and bigger, and he gets so big that it takes 6 men to feed him. And they don't even try to go about it easily, the hard way. They just take the whole barrel of hay and they just heave it on up, and Babe just goes off and snatches it right out of the air and eats the whole thing. And while he's chewing, he just sort of spits out the baling wire. And Paul Bunyan and Babe got along so well, and Babe was so big that they just stayed friends forever. And you can still go see them in Brainerd, Minnesota. The end.